Okay, can we talk about, let's see here. Hang on, sorry. Let's start with something that's a bit more serious. And this is Bilibili in the news again. And the headline here is, reported Bilibili obtains exclusive Overwatch League broadcast rights in China. So as per this report, they have exclusive broadcast rights for Overwatch League for the Chinese region. And this is the interesting part of this article for me was the context around Bilibili being the third sort of largest streaming player in China. But yet they've now secured, so they have league rights, they have Overwatch League rights. Like they seem to be scooping up media rights much more aggressively, like League of Legends. I said when I said league, much more aggressively than Huya or Douyu. And I'm curious if you guys have thoughts on, is it just that they have a different strategy? Is it that the other two players don't care because they're bigger? Like, where are you guys on this like Chinese streaming scene?
I mean, first, we have to drink twice because we just said Bilibili and Overwatch League. So that pretty much ticks two of our, typical.
If you're playing along, that's A3.
That's actually such a fun idea. I'm going to have Business of Esports bingo cards printed that you can download and print yourself or something.
Be entertaining.
Oh my God, Paul, if we did that on the live stream and there's like everyone gets their own.
If you get a bingo, you win a piece of merch or something. Yeah.
Oh, that would be so
cute.
That's a good
idea. That'd be funny. I mean, I have a lot of thought. I think there's a lot of different ways we can kind of analyze this or take the, one, I think these rights probably are valuable given Overwatch is more popular in China, I think, than the US in terms of the Overwatch League. So, good on Bilibili for getting these rights. I do think this is probably a more valuable commodity. Like normally, hey, Overwatch League selling the rights, I feel like we would come in here and maybe poo-poo that a little bit. But I do think the China rights definitely have value just given the popularity there. Second point to note, take this in a different direction, didn't say the price, I don't believe, which we've talked in the past about why that is the case when press releases are not, don't have numbers. And usually it's because the number is not something that the company wants you to know.
And in this case, it's even more explicit because there's already a number out for, I believe, the League of Legends, right? So arguably, if this number were lower, like, you just would not want that disclosed because it's sort of saying our broadcast rights. It's just a very public data point about comp broadcast rights and their comparative values. So for sure.
So those are two big thoughts. I don't know, William, what you.
Well, I mean, I think this is, look, I mean, it's pretty obvious in my mind what's happening here, which is this is the smaller provider. They have to try something to gain share. This is a broadcaster. Exclusive content is a pretty good way to get traction. See every streaming service ever and how they've evolved their business models. It's incredibly smart to go on an acquisition spree. And to some extent, I think once you get one, it makes it a lot easier to get the next one, right? Like once you get the first one and you have that relationship and that credibility, it becomes a it's just like if you were starting a TV network and you didn't have the Olympics on it, let's say, right? But then all of a sudden you got rights to NHL hockey, right? Makes it easier to then go and get another, you know what I mean? Like there's a credibility that gets accumulated here. So I think to some extent too, they sort of, by buying one, they already lever themselves against the opportunity to go buy more pretty effectively. The other thing I'd say here though, is it's a pretty scary strategy in the sense that they are betting that people then stick around, right? Like the bet here is, you come to our platform for Overwatch League and you stay because of all the other great stuff you have here. And, I have to ask you guys, like, do we think that, like, that's pretty obviously the bet, right? Like, do we think that's true? Like, just honestly, like, do you think that if you tune in to a channel for a live sporting event, you will stay on that channel afterwards, right? You will return to that channel as a port of call.
I mean, linear TV bets on that, right, William? That exact strategy.
Linear TV bets on it, yeah.
Right? They're like, their big new show, they put it, right after their new show, they put it right after their existing, star show. Like, if NBC's launching a new show, they'll run it after Seinfeld or whatever back in the day, right?
Programming kind of 101.
Yeah, literally, like it's that you can't be bothered to change the remote, so I'll watch that new sitcom, and then all of a sudden I'm hooked, right? Exactly. But the difference is we didn't see any of this behavior with Mixer, right? We did not see any of this behavior with Mixer. And the reality might be like, that the switching costs you have on terrestrial TV, right? Like it's so much lower in a digital world, right? There's just so much more content. So much, like I personally think that there is a lot more risk in this strategy than is upfront and apparent, because if you think about how you consume, like, for example, you're on YouTube, right, to watch gaming videos, but then you're not going and watching live streaming. Like that hasn't propelled YouTube's live streaming business to this massive, like the argument, in some sense you could make the same argument here, which is there's a honeypot of content, people will stick around, but we have not observed that with YouTube, right?
But why do you care, William, right? Like if Bilibili has done the math and there were so just let me answer Christian's question, that none of this was disclosed. So how long were the rights bought for? It doesn't say in the story. I don't know if it's in another article, but in the articles I saw, wasn't disclosed, nor was the price. Like, do you care though, William? Like, I don't think maybe NBC factors this in when they buy the rights for, NFL football or Fox or whatever, who owns, NFL media rights. But I'm sure part of the math is just, we think we're going to get this many eyeballs on Bilibili. What ads can we sell against that? And therefore it's worth X to us.
I think you're probably right, but I was going to say, didn't Fox like very famously overpay for the NFL to build out, like when they were trying to become the fourth broadcast network, like that was sort of their way in, like they overpaid, and CBS was like NFL is not worth
and that has
$1 billion,
to be, like,
and then
you have to assume
Fox built their programming around that. So.
You have to assume there were other bidders, right? Like you have to assume it wasn't like only Bilibili knew these rights were for sale and only Bilibili put in an offer, right? Have to assume that it was a competitive process. And I think it's plausible that the third provider would be willing to overpay for rights to shore up their business. That's probably why you're seeing it going to the third most popular provider.
And William, you're not bothered, maybe bother is the wrong word, but you're not intrigued that Huya and DouYu continue to not pay up for these media rights? Like, well, I'm always the third biggest guy who's buying them up?
That's sort of what I'm wondering, is what do Huya and DouYu know? That, that's sort of the point I'm making, is maybe these guys are like, okay, great. You think that's how you get a streaming network to work. Guess what? You're going to have a ton of people come on your platform. You're never going to be able to make back the money for the rights you had, and they're all going to leave. We're happy for you to do this. You know what I mean? Because like it's taking pressure off of what we know builds the business, which is, and I have no idea, but it's, a great content creator relations program, or, whatever. Like, I mean, I'm totally making it up, but like the point is, like, it is interesting that these guys are willing to let 3 go in a row. It suggests maybe they know something that Bilibili doesn't. Because again, I don't think
or Bilibili knows something
that these other people don't. Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Well, they both think they know something. Only one of them is going to be right.
Yeah. So. Sam says, return to watch the events every now and then, or return to watch other content other than the exclusive I came for. William, I assume you were talking about other content.
Other content. Yeah.
Cam says, where do Chinese gamers stream? Could this pull streamers? Well, those are the 3 biggest platforms, right? Cam, it's Huya, DouYu, and Bilibili. Those are the 3 Twitches of China.
Are Huya and DouYu still merging, or is that not?
I think it's happened. They're both owned by Tencent now. I think they may operate their sites are operated still separately, but it's the same owner. Sam says, because in the case of smaller streaming services acquiring exclusives or specific streamers, I'm usually only watching those smaller platforms for those exclusives. Yeah, so that backs up the idea that Bilibili is maybe making a mistake here, and Huya and DouYu are smarter and realizing that people are only going to come for Overwatch League and not stay for anything else. Ramsey says, also might be an extension of the Mixer strategy, where they now look for exclusive talent / streamers since they've grown their base. I mean, we all know how well the Mixer
Well,
strategy.
no, but I think this is, I think it's a maturation of the Mixer strategy, which is Mixer said, okay, maybe it's the personalities that matter, right? That seems to have been disproven. Now this is another bet that says, no, it's the events that matter, right? It's the tentpole moments that matter, right? We'll see how that plays too. But it's interesting. It's kind of exciting because it's sort of like people are trying to figure out what makes streaming platforms work, but nobody really seems to know what the magic rest, like what's the thing you need to cement you in there. It's really fun to see huge companies take massive bets and just clearly not have been right. And there's again, I thought the Mixer strategy was so smart when they started poaching. So it's not a knock on them. It's just, it's fun. It shows it's a really difficult market to crack,
And what you need may be region specific. It may not be globally applicable, which is also another interesting wrinkle here.
100%.
I will say and we alluded to this, because the terms weren't disclosed, guaranteed this was way smaller than the League of Legends media rights deal. And I'm sure
expect, obviously, right?
Overwatch League is not thrilled about that number being out there because I assume it's quite small. Let me just add one more piece to this story, which I thought was interesting. Bilibili owns an Overwatch League team. Does that change any of your thinking? They own the Hangzhou Spark, or I'm not actually sure about the pronunciation.
Isn't that the separate company? Don't they have two companies now? They have like Bilibili
Esports. Yeah, but it's still Bilibili. Does that, being a franchise partner, does that change? Like, how do you guys, does that change your feelings about the deal?
I mean, it's a little bit of a conflict of interest, but doesn't really change that much.
Okay. So no one's
right, because I don't think that Bilibili, my guess is the person who bid the hundreds of millions of dollars for the TV contract probably sits above on the totem pole than like the person who runs the team that makes like negative money. Like literally negative money.
If you're the owner,
I'm guessing they weren't. I'm guessing they didn't say like, "Hey, let's spend $200 million so our Overwatch League team can make like $3 million." Like, that's not a great economic decision.
Okay, but it's probably
Tell
not
us how you
$200
really
million.
feel, Jeff. Yeah.
But hold on. If I'm the owner of the Shanghai Dragons, right? Am I bothered that now the media rights for Overwatch League are owned by essentially my competitor?
What do you mean?
Because Bilibili,
who owns the Shanghai Dragons?
Someone else. That's my point. Bilibili owns the Hangzhou Spark, right? But now they own the media rights for the league. Are you not worried?
League teams in the same league are not competitors, right? Like, they are competitors on the field, but the New York Jets do not, I think, compete with the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like, they all make money as a league, as the league sells the biggest media rights deals, as the league sells sponsorships, the league sells gambling rights. Like, yes, they compete on Sundays, and like maybe like for local advertising they compete, but that's been the beauty of these, all of these massive leagues is that they've come together as enterprises and like, they don't compete. It's the point.
I hear your point. It's a good one, Jeff, but let me take it to an extreme, right? Like, I'm Bilibili. Now I'm setting up the broadcast here, and I own the rights for China, and I'm going, no, like in this 4-minute intro, make sure 3 minutes is about the Hangzhou Spark, and we only cover Shanghai for 20 seconds because then we'll sell more jerseys, right? Or whatever the thinking is. I get it that you're right.
It's a fair rebuttal. I think that probably crosses the mind of whoever owns the Shanghai team. But I'm sure in the contract, all of these things are probably it's like, I don't think that the league would allow the broadcaster to do that. Otherwise, the league's commissioner is not doing his job, right? To kind of make everything fair and equitable.